I can show you the plans and such.
Bill, we're ready to roll. Good morning and welcome, everyone. This is a special called workshop for the Boyle County Fiscal Court to hear some information about our upcoming detention center planning. So thank you all for being here. And Magistrate Harmon, would you offer a blessing for us before we get started, please?
Yes. Father, we thank you today for this day that you have made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We pray for our friends in the Middle East and all the war-torn things that are going on now. We pray for the families, the children, and all those involved in that. And Lord, we thank you today that we can meet and take care of business and look at things that pertains to our county jail. We love you and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. All right, and then I'm going to let, I know Monica, and I know this face, but so I'm going to let you all just introduce yourselves and get started and tell us what we need to know.
Okay, I'll go first because I'm the quickest.
Yeah, because you need to. Yeah.
No, not because I'm in a hurry, but he's really the brains of this operation. So my name is Monica Sumner, and I think all of y'all know I live here in the county. So I'm here just as our firm representative, just ensuring that all of our contractual obligations are met so that you have a local face to call on if you have any need to. But I am not a jail designer. I do care about the project, been involved with it from the very beginning. I understand that the health of our criminal justice system is important to the health of the overall community, and that's really where my passion lies, is having healthy communities. I do care where the building goes and what the building looks like, but in terms of operations and actual design and content of the building, we're going to rely on Eric Chambers, and he can introduce himself, and your esteemed jail staff to carry that ball. So glad to be here with you all today.
Thank you very much.
Judge, you care if I jump in next?
I don't mind at all.
Well, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to go ahead and have a meeting is because I think the fiscal court needs to decide what kind of jail we're going to build before we can really start planning. And I know we still have to do our letter to the state, and that you've reached out to the state about trying to get some land at North Point. So Julie and I and Chad will have a letter hopefully ready to go by Tuesday of next week. We'll give the 5 points. But the thing, here's what I need to know, and I think kind of to work with them. And there's been talk in the past about housing state inmates, not housing state inmates. Of course, hopefully our partnership was going to change in Mercer County. We've had other counties reach out to us asking to house their inmates for them. So that's kind of what I need to know, or we need to know what the fiscal court wants, because it's your all's jail. I just run it, so you all have to pay for it. So that's kind of one, I just kind of want to get your thoughts, and I want to get everybody in the room at the same time, so we know.
Good deal.
Judge, as chair of the jail committee, if I might have liberty to make a comment here. Sure. The state pays us less than 60% of a day in our jail. So that goes to our taxpayers right here in Boyle County. Compounding that problem, we've just learned this morning from our jailer that just one incident that hit about 3 years ago was a gentleman who got an artificial leg, and how much was that?
It was $8,000.
And now we have something that could be $6,000 to $9,000 a month with respect to prescription drugs that are needed by a state inmate. And what's our compensation from the state for $6,000?
Well, we get our $46 and then $2, and I think it's 12 cents or 26 cents is supposed to go to medical, which that doesn't cover it.
Housing state inmates is not a good financial deal for our taxpayers.
Now, I'm going to say this. If you remember, there is a lawsuit that Kentucky Jail Association is part of, and we're kind of part of it through our county is through that, where we brought these issues and we're suing. So, that's going to be 18, 24 months. We've talked about in the past. That could change. They could say, no, you've got to pay a higher rate. basically right now, the benefit of the state is just cash flow. It helps us because they pay us every month, and I'm thinking we're making a little over $100,000. Darlene, you correct me on these, but we average a little bit over $100,000 a month. So what it does, it just gives us cash flow. It's not profit. It just helps us pay the bills and have money coming in to, pay the bills. But we lose money on it. So, that could change in 6 to 8 months, I guess, however much longer we have on during this process for the lawsuit. So that could change. It could change for the good, or it could change for the worse, or it may not change at all, but there is potential there. Also, for what we're housing, we lose money on what it costs for us to house them. So, and this is just me personally, it doesn't matter to me whether we house just Boyle County inmates, Boyle County, Mercer County inmates, Boyle County, Mercer State inmates, it doesn't matter. I think that building this, going forward, building this facility, we need to decide, okay, how many beds we're gonna need. The big thing in there is I'm gonna make sure we have treatment rooms, because we know treatment works. We're one of the first communities in the state to embrace it, and I think,
100% assessment.
Yeah, and I've shared this before, for every dollar, for every dollar you invest in treatment like this, your ROI on it's like $4.15. So it pays, because they come back out, they're productive, they're paying taxes, working, they're getting their families back together. So I think that would be my recommendation to you all, is that we do whatever we build, that we have room in there to provide treatment, mental health, substance abuse, job skills, all those things that are important to our community.
Brian, walk us through 3 guys from outside the county, state responsibility. We arrest them on a Saturday night, and we don't accept state employees. What would our procedure be? Do we jail them overnight?
Well, here's the thing, we would still have to accept somebody arrested in Boyle County on Boyle County charges. Now, they would stay there, but once they become a state inmate, we would no longer have a contract to house them. But we would still have like CIs. So basically, they go to court, they go to circuit court, they're sentenced. Well, we have to house them technically until they are, what's the word, Chad, help me, until they are classified, there we go.
Is that 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2
Well,
months?
by KRS it's 45 days, but right now the average is 250 days.
So 45 days, even if we don't contract with the state?
Well, they would pay us for that. We would be paid, but it would, I don't know what rate.
But in 45 days, $6,000 of treatment for the drug.
Well, we would be responsible for that. And we would still, they would not cover it. So we would be whatever the rate they set.
Does the lawsuit address those ancillary costs beyond the per diem? In other words, would they pay the $6,000?
That is all kind of included. I don't know how that's going to be worked out. But here's the thing, like our SAP program would go away because those are state inmates. But that would free us up to put more into our county inmates. Right. So we'd have to make some changes there, and probably make some changes with Shepherd's House, because Shepherd's House provides our SAP program.
If you don't mind, the inmate you're talking about with the $6,000, he just got a 10-year sentence. No other jail will accept him as a work. He's with us. His out date is 2029. So we could be on the hook for this for a long time.
Run the numbers on that.
And that's just one. I mean, you're looking at $80,000 a year just on the medication, and that doesn't change. That's if we can keep him on the cheaper one. If he has to go to the more expensive one, which is $9,000. So that's just one inmate. If we get 3 or 4 of those inmates, you're talking $500,000 a year subsidizing state inmates, subsidizing their health. So
I think this is why when Magistrate Sleeper and I were walking into the Capitol, and a very high-ranking member of the Senate was walking in, and I think he let us know that he's extraordinarily concerned about the litigation, because I got the feeling that he realized that they might not have a leg to stand on.
And there's been talk about regionalizing jails where the state would take over. Well, me personally, I don't think that will happen, and there's a lot of, jailers in the KJA that's been around 20, 30 years. And they said, they've tried this before, but if, you're looking at probably $500 million to even build 10, and then they have to run them, so, the state's not gonna do that. So I don't really think that'll happen. I could be wrong, crazier things happen, but I don't think that'll happen. So
I was down there in the 80s when they went for profit, and I think, is it one still in place in eastern Kentucky?
I think there's one in the state.
Yeah. We had a half a dozen built, and it was not economically feasible to be a for-profit private sector jail, and that's now the burden that we face for our taxpayers.
So,
It sounds like it's a no-brainer not to have the state in here if you're always gonna be, for medications that you know, that could be so astronomically large.
Or
For one
surgeries,
person, or surgeries, or, different treatments, but.
I mean, we will have certain state inmates that we have to keep by KRS,
Right,
but we
right.
will not be providing housing.
Housing for
And
it.
then, now, that does mean, okay, so without that, it will cost the county more. It'll be cheaper,
Right.
but the county's gonna have to contribute more to the cost of it because we're gonna lose that revenue.
Right.
Okay, can we jump back to Monica, cause she's got to,
Oh, I thought she was done, I'm
I'm
sorry.
finished.
That's why I went next.
I'm finished.
do you have a presentation that you wanted to do on?
No, I'm gonna let Eric introduce
Oh,
himself,
okay,
I'll introduce,
okay.
just so everyone knows what
yeah.
he's doing.
Oh, okay.
Eric Chambers. I worked with some of you on the study portion of it. Some of you are familiar with me, but I basically handle all of our correctional type projects. Worked on the study, and met with Brian about a month ago with our team to start talking about where we're going as far as the design. We got to create a program. We got to talk about all those things. So we started that process. The big thing, which I'm sure you all are knowledgeable of, since 18, when the study was completed to where we are today, costs for construction have almost doubled in a lot of situations. So looking at the size of we initially started with, I think as Brian mentioned, how many beds are we going to do? What does that mean? What kind of programming space? Even trying to make it as flexible as possible, we gotta come to a conclusion on what are we willing to spend on the project, because that's the information I need to be able to know how to serve and to provide that program. So, so that's some of the concern, because obviously our study, I think in the study the comparison between renovating and brand new was relatively similar costs. They were in roughly the $30 million range, but that was using, I think, about $350 a square foot, and we're seeing construction pricing up at near $600 a square foot. So $30 million project in 18 was a lot different than a $30 million project today. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of decisions that have to go into what are we willing to spend, how many beds do we want, that kind of thing, and then that gives our team the ability to start working with Brian and trying to figure out how we best can meet the need with the budgetary number that we have. Mm-hmm. We got a national corrections expert on our team for that main reason is to help us try to be flexible in space and come up with ways to give you all flexibility. There are some new facilities that have been built in this state on a county level. I would yes, they look good. If you go and look at them, you're gonna say, oh, these are nice. The problem is with Kentucky has always done the same type of jail over and over and over again, expecting different results. And we are, just like we identified in our study, you need to approach it in a different way. The inmates, though a lot of the behavioral type things are there's a lot of jails are a lot different than they used to be. You're dealing with mental health, you're dealing with substance abuse, you're dealing with a lot of things that basically has now become a burden for you as a county that wasn't there before, or wasn't, I guess, as prevalent as it is today with mental health and those things. So so that's kind of where we are, trying to think through where we go with that. So,
Is this 2017, is this the study?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the condensed version
Yeah,
of the
okay,
study.
we have
Yeah,
a
we
full.
got a
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to decide what I should give them. if they
Well, I
want
did
it.
bring 3 copies in this. Now, you know, some of this material, it's dated,
Yeah,
but if anybody wanted a copy, we did bring a few.
Yeah.
okay, great.
And that's, yeah, you'll want to give them the whole study, to DOC when you give them your application and stuff. Because that's one of the items they want a feasibility study done, but, which you obviously already have done, so.
So we need to decide the rooms and physical things
Well,
today?
what I
That's
wanted
what I
to do
want Brian
today
to
is,
do.
that's what I wanted to do today, is
Tell
I
us.
wanna make sure everybody was in the room together so we can start from the same place. And so, you know, when we start this, we don't start going down a path and like, oh no, you know. So I kinda just wanted to get everybody a base to start from and to be thinking about, you know, where we're going. So, you know, the next part of the process is we have to, you know, DOC, I guess, has to approve for us. We have to justify that we need to build a new facility, which I think that'll be easy
That's
if you
easy,
walk through,
Absolutely.
especially having the study that we're done. But I just wanted to make sure everybody, you know, you all are aware of what we're facing and what we're looking at and to be considered. So I just kind of wanted to get everybody together so you know, understood. If you had any questions, now would be the time.
And the one good thing is, about the study is DOC was involved in the study process. They were on one of our committees, and so,
And Kirsty was at those
Yeah.
meetings, so.
yeah.
Judge, I want to loop back to what Brian said about the statute and accepting state inmates. The General Assembly meets come January. I'm no attorney, counselor, but I don't think it would be at cross purposes with the litigation that's underway to give us financial relief to attempt legislation that could change the burden of accepting state inmates. You go back just 20 years in healthcare, and if you had shoulder surgery, you were likely going to be in the hospital 3 to 5 days. We now have a philosophy in healthcare, in my field for 26 years, treat them and street them. And if we could apply that same philosophy through a statutory change, working with our senator and our representative and friends in surrounding counties, that burden could be lifted by April 15 of 2024. It's an uphill climb this late in the planning stages, but I certainly think that we ought to send a tape of what we're talking about today to our, not only our senators and state representatives, but any of us who have friends around the table all across the state who have this same burden. 76 jails across the state now.
I think 76, 78, something.
Every one of them ought to see this discussion and realize that we need to get together through your association, Brian, and others who have an interest in this, and get relief on a Saturday night and get those ladies and gentlemen out of our jails within a few days.
Now, there's a pending lawsuit, I mean, that's,
Yeah, and that's kind of what he's talking about.
I said,
I mean,
if it's
yeah.
not an impediment, that's why I referenced, you
right,
know,
because they might not do anything since there's a lawsuit going on.
Yeah,
Now,
they're not, and I
mentioned
think
that.
that's kind of held up some of the other stuff because of the lawsuit.
I
So
tried.
they're waiting to.
I would certainly make the attempt.
But, you know, so like I said, I just want to make sure, you know, and the best thing, you know, the positive thing is we have Master Harmon here who has more experience than anybody in this room running the jail. And-
Stop, just stop people right out here at Main in front of the courthouse and say, did you realize that you might be paying over the next few years for an inmate in our prison up to $500,000 for his treatments because the state won't pay that bill? And imagine the reaction. No one would know unless the media gets a hold of this. But this could bankrupt any county.
Eric, could you kind of outline the steps that we need to do, like site selection?
Yes.
What are our responsibilities here in working through this process?
So, obviously, the first thing, you'll have to submit your application to get DOC's approval, or their blessing. Now, I can tell you from the construction authority meetings that I've been on, The DOC has never, I have never seen them approve, meaning they've never voted for moving forward. It's all the other people on the authority that always vote yes. I think it's just the DOC, I think, doesn't want to be, I think they understand how much these things cost and what you're getting into. So I think in the application, you've got to justify your financials, and you've got to show, 5 years back or 3 years back or something on your financials up for your jail and for the county. So that's the first process, is getting that. Obviously, you don't have property right now. You're working on trying to get some property out at the North Point site. So that obviously is a key, because it's really hard for us to design on no site. We have to have a site and understand. I can come up with a great design, but if you don't get that property for it, it doesn't
Imaginary
matter.
site.
Yeah.
Do you agree that's probably the best site, that we should pursue that more aggressively?
I would, from my standpoint, it would be, because you're not having to buy local property and try to go through that process.
And you're not gonna have neighbors saying, well, we don't want a jail built here.
Not in my
There's already a
backyard.
prison here, so.
And utilities are already there.
Yeah.
And I think long-term, you look at 30, 40, 50 years from now, I think that site is still a good site. Whereas if you were to purchase something, around here, where, whatever that means, on the bypass, 40 years from now, that might not be a good site.
It would discourage other development.
Yes,
Yeah.
but out there, I think it remains a good site even many, many years from now, when none of us are in this room.
Yeah, because I think one of the big problems you have at your current facility, even if it was in good shape, is you're landlocked. You don't have the ability to expand, and none of us can predict what the correction market's going to look like 20, 30 years, but it's very likely you could be, needing to expand, and I think that property affords you that ability. But also, it affords you the ability to do some programming stuff that you can't do now that Brian would like to implement. So with land being available, so that's helpful.
And besides, that's something we've talked about in our committees in the past. We have a site, and it would be operational until the completion of the new site, as opposed to trying to get jailers in other communities to
Having
take
to pay somebody else
our
to house their
inmates.
inmates while they tear down and rebuild, that would even triple, the cost.
Yeah, I think financially, the North Point site is a good site, but I think also from a functional programmatic standpoint, it's good.
What do we do if the state says no?
We're pushing in.
But I mean, if
I've been there
ultimately,
so many times.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't want to convey land at the North Point property to you guys, then, and there's just absolutely no way they're gonna do it, then you're gonna have to look for property.
Something else.
have we spoke to North
Here-
Point?
Here's the interesting point. We're talking about kicking the state out of our jail,
That's
but
what I
then
was
we're gonna go
thinking.
ask the state.
That's what I was
for it.
thinking.
Funny.
Yeah.
Well, we
I
just
was
don't tell
thinking
them
it.
yet.
I thought, do I mention that, or just?
Yeah.
Mr. Cullen, that's why I mentioned, rather than kicking them out, get a state statute changed to where, in the light of $6,000 per treatment of pharmaceuticals, or deep surgery that costs my hip $79,000, we would get other statutes changed to where that would be on the state tab.
There needs to be a catastrophic statute for inmates.
Precisely.
For anything above the normal
And that
bill.
way, we
Yes.
don't blow the negotiations with the state.
Have we approached North Point? Do they know we're asking for this? Should
The
we?
previous warden did, no.
We don't want somebody working against us.
Well, I
guess
think
wanna-
the
I don't-
judges,
it
I
has
haven't
nothing
talked
to do
to
with
the
the
warden,
people at
but I've
North
talked to
Okay,
part of the, like who it is.
the state treasury that owns
Department
it,
of Corrections.
Yes.
that owns all the
Yes.
state property.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I've spoken to them.
Okay.
And we've requested 10 acres is what we've requested,
is that enough?
so,
Yeah,
well,
so it's just more.
that's all they were interested in
10 seems good.
Yeah, I
talking
think that-
about.
I
You
think
could have
that'll-
more, but
Yeah, I think it
If, so what was the last, are we waiting on them? Do we have to, what do we do to wait to hear something from them? Where are we at?
They were gonna get back with me after they talked to somebody else, and I have not heard anything back, other than we got the packet,
Yes.
that we need to start,
Yes.
working on. And
Judge, about when was that? I mean,
that's
just to
probably
give us a
2 months
perspective
ago.
of time. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably about 2
Couple
months ago.
I'm thinking June.
It was a good 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say at this point in time, one
Judge,
of
the
the things
last
that,
person who gave us land out there was the governor, previous governor,
Yeah.
couple governors ago. But yeah, previous governor was the one that gave us the land, so that's really your end.
well, and I was gonna say that
Because I think you're going to get run around.
the thing we're, you know, as far as timing goes, that the reality is we're gonna have to wait until after November
No
6th
question.
or whatever comes and goes. Because
It's still-
as we know, right now, Frankfurt in kind of, you know, they won't do anything until after the election's done.
Right.
Everybody knows who's gonna be where.
Right.
Unless it's part of an announcement,
Right.
if we could push to get a pre-election announcement,
Mm-hmm.
which we don't have much time.
No, we don't have much time.
Weeks.
Does
We go
Julie
back
need
close.
to follow up with them about the land, just
Yeah,
as it's
we-
been, just to see?
We do.
Yeah.
It's just been 2 months, that feels
Yeah,
like a
we
good
need to
amount of
follow
time.
Because, you know, things get busy and get put to the side, and people forget.
We can do
So,
that. I know we've talked to Rock, I know Rocky has been reminded, I know he.
Several times.
Yeah.
By several people.
Right.
We also gotta talk about our bonding capacity, and that's because you mentioned expenses, and everything has gone up since 2018. So that affects us on how much we are going to be able to, bond. And, I know the 300 bed capacity, that exceeds our bonding capacity. So we're gonna have to look at reducing the number of beds in order to still be able to.
And I'm thinking 250 beds, because of, you know, depending on who we're housing, if we have another epidemic, and, Master Harmon, the jailer, he was over 400, and, you know, him and Chad were making late night trips to Casey County to move inmates out, so you kinda, you know, at 85%, you're technically full, of that number, because you have to have room for spikes, and that's all in the study. You know, if they go out and do a big roundup, or something happens, there's a mass arrest, so you have to have room, so really 85% of whatever your bed count is, you're full.
So what is our bed count now?
220 beds.
20 beds, okay.
But again, that's max capacity.
Yeah, that's-
That's full.
Secure.
That's, yeah, full, everybody, that's a
No
bed.
more room in the end. And we can also design for future expansions. You know, you may not be able to get everything today just due to those costs, but I
And
know
yeah,
we've done many jails in phases. You need to have a plan to move forward with those phases, or they never happen, but that may be a strategy moving toward a higher bed count within a certain number of years, is doing some phasing and some planning toward that.
and that would be my ideal, so if whatever we built, that, you know, everything, the water, the electric, all they do is kind of start building from the new section, knock a hole, and hook everything
Right.
up, and go. So even down the road.
So the infrastructure facilities like kitchens, laundries, the support spaces get designed and built for, say, a 400 bed jail, that's a random number. But you may only start with 250 beds, but as you expand or build another dorm wing or what have you, all of those support facilities are in.
You could add more washing machines and dryers
Correct.
and cooking, you know.
Correct.
You could just come in and add those things.
This is not at all a recommendation, and anything but that. But what would the reality be to the state if 38 of 76 county judges and fiscal courts said, we're out of the business? Because, counselor, we and 38 other jails would have that prerogative, wouldn't we? There's nothing that says that we are mandated by statute to have a jail.
I thought there was.
Well, we're mandated to care for the inmate, for our inmates, but we're not.
As long as we
required-
have a jail.
Right, but it also says you can contract out with other counties to
No,
house your
I'm
inmates.
saying if 38 just abandoned the idea of having jails, what would, the state would have to face the reality.
Well,
That's not gonna
actually, it would be on the counties, because the county has to find, it's their responsibility to contract with somebody else to house their inmate. Well, the lack of jails in this area, you know, they're full. Everybody's full, there's no room. So that means you're gonna be putting inmates all over the state, 2 to 4 hours away, and then somebody's gonna be responsible for getting them all back to, courts, doctor's appointments, all that kind of stuff, so,
Any way you shake it, it's a crisis right now.
yeah.
So what are we bonded? How big,
Well,
You said for 300 rooms, so.
well, that exceeded our bonding capacity, which is around, 50 million.
25.
So,
And Eric, from the numbers you're talking about, a 250 bed jail would probably be 40 plus.
The one the initial program that we put together after our discussion, we were using $555 a square foot. And so I think we were.
And you said it's now over 6.
It's close to 60 million is what that was coming in at. So it's almost doubled from where we were.
right.
The
So have y'all done an updated analysis, like on, say, a 200 bed, to see what that would cost?
No, we have not done it per bed. It's
Okay.
Well, I don't think we'd wanna go backwards on our bed count.
the bed,
It's hard to justify.
It's
Well,
hard,
It'd be hard to
taxpayers.
justify going, from a 220 bed facility to a 200 bed. I think we need to add a few extra beds.
Well, okay, I'm just
Yeah.
wanting to know financially,
Right.
yeah.
financial wise.
Well, it
you know.
makes sense if we didn't have the state in there. That's where it would make sense to go back, because if the majority of your inmates are state inmates, there's no need to build a jail, a 300-person jail.
Right.
And, a third is gone, so you gotta look to see what we're trying to accomplish here. Are we trying to keep state, or are we trying to get rid of state? And I know,
And that's
you
the
know, I
thing
brought
too,
up
if we're
about-
not gonna do state, then we're gonna have to go buy land somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
But
So I
if
said
we
that.
can't
Probably
afford a
75.
300 bed jail, we've got to go back.
Right.
18.
What's the percentage
We're
of
at
our
like
state?
500 and almost $600 a square foot.
So this 35 million for
Yeah.
450
Okay.
beds, was that maybe 385 a square foot?
Yeah, probably somewhere in there.
So,
Magistrate Sleeper, I want that to be on the record, because that's a very important point that you just asked. Could you restate that question,
What's the percentage of state inmates in our jail?
Chad?
It runs about 50%. I mean, that fluctuates, but.
Right.
It changes daily, but that's, I think right now I have 86 state inmates.
Which is low.
Which is low for us. We normally run 115.
And we can justify daily cost of being $65, $66, and they pay us under $35 a day.
46, I think is what the new pay.
just to kind of give you an idea, we were just crunching the numbers, it looks like construction's up about 42% from 2018. So that gives you an idea of
Yeah.
what we're facing
Yeah.
here.
So one thing that we can do is we can build the space to be flexible. So if you do decide, maybe you don't make that decision right now, but if you decide at some point you're get rid of the state, those beds can be
But
converted.
you need an initial number
We need an
to start with.
So the DOC is not going to approve you basing your financials on DOC or state inmates in your facility. So if you're getting $100,000 a month or whatever that number is, DOC is not going to say that is okay for you all to count that, because they're going to tell you that they can't guarantee you're going to have state inmates.
Okay.
Even though we know you probably will, but
Yeah.
they're going to say that they can't guarantee it. That's why they always vote no in the construction authority.
Okay.
Because every single jail that comes up to there expects state inmate because of the revenue. And they're gonna tell you that we can't agree to that, because we can't guarantee you we're gonna have those inmates in your jail.
Okay.
So, if you have other partners that are willing to house, like you guys can negotiate the rates with the other counties. But I mean, even if you look at including US Marshal or ICE, any of those type, you could, you're talking, the last one I heard was like close to $70 an inmate per diem, because they're gonna pay, the federals are gonna pay, because they don't have any place to put these people.
Would any of those be housed at North Point right now? No.
I don't know,
No,
I'm
this
sure
is-
that's
but-
the state. The counties
These are
figuring
federal
out.
inmates,
Okay.
Yeah, but that's about a 2 to 3 year process to get them.
Yeah.
So, and we would have to have
Yeah.
a jail with the room to say, hey, because they've got to come down and inspect it.
Right.
They look at your
Yeah.
financials and they don't pay you like a flat rate. They base it on, if you run a very good jail that doesn't, that's efficient as far as what you spend, that's what they base it on. So if you have a bad jail and your expenses are high, they pay you more, which is, makes no sense, but that's fiscal government. So, so there's a lot of factors in there, and it takes, and I've talked to, there's some jails that's doing that, and it's about a 2 to 3 year, but I can give you all the contacts, I know, who to call, how to start, that would help me. But they said it's about a 2 to 3 year process just to get them.
So would they, if we have to take the state inmate revenue out, do they say we'll approve you at a certain number of beds? Or is it just a yes, no based on what we asked for?
The construction, basically it's just it'd be like a board like this.
Yeah.
And if it passes, it doesn't matter what if the DOC voted no.
Okay.
But you will, when we get through to the design, then we have to submit that to the DOC. They look at it, and really what they're looking at is compliance with their standards. They have construction standards. That's typically what, now I'm sure there are, I've never had them say, well, we don't like the number of beds you have. It's
Okay.
typically like, well, where's your minimum, where's your maximum, where's your medium security, do you have enough laundry, do you have enough kitchen? That's what they're looking at. Now, they do have stuff that Brian and Chad would have to put together from an operational plan and all that kind of stuff, but they've already got that because you're operating a jail now, so it's not gonna be new. It'd just probably be modified to fit the new facility, so.
And that would be like staffing, those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Staffing.
Yeah.
So we have to pass an ordinance or a resolution where fiscal court had an affirmative vote to move forward with the project. So we have to do that. Then we also need to have a deed, lease, or legal description of the property being conveyed or purchased at North Point. So we need, she says, can you get something from the state?
Yeah, I would have to, they would give you something
Yeah.
when they convey it to you.
So do we need to have a secondary land,
Well, you always need a backup plan.
yeah, a plan B, just,
Yeah, you always need a backup plan.
and that's gonna, that's gonna add cost, but.
Stewart's Lane.
I mean, would we decide today? If
Well, I
you're
think
gonna-
you all could vote today to move forward, like
Yeah,
she said, to go ahead on, the first part of it, I
Well,
think.
what I'm talking about is, whether we're gonna have state inmates or not, that's, I mean, two whole completely different things. So we need to decide today what we're gonna do, have state inmates or not have state inmates.
Well, we need to decide today what action we're gonna take on Tuesday. We can't take any action in the
Just
workshop, but we
workshop.
can decide to bring it up Tuesday.
Okay,
on-
all right.
yeah.
And like I say, you could take a couple of weeks to talk about this and look at numbers, to make sure, but, yeah.
Well,
Maybe you let us work on this and bring a preliminary report to fiscal court.
Okay, in a couple weeks
With
then.
some options, yeah.
Not
Maybe
rush it.
We
I
could do
heard-
that for the
I heard the word option, I mean,
November 14th.
you could give us a with and without, right? The state,
Yeah,
yeah,
we can
so
do.
it's not a
We can
decision
do
that's
different
critical.
we can do different bed numbers and stuff.
And design changes as well, because you segregate the populations.
Yeah.
So I still see that we still have to, by Tuesday, when we do make a decision, have to decide which way we're going. I mean, you've got to determine, right head on. I mean, you can get two options, but then one option, we don't have any land, so that entails a lot more work.
That
That's gonna be
A lot more expense.
a lot more expense, a lot more work.
persuasion,
Who do we, put this, what communities it's gonna be near, so much on that end.
Yeah, we don't need to acquire land before the vote of whether we're gonna go forward or
Yes,
not.
exactly.
So,
Cart before the horse.
Yes.
let's do that Tuesday, see
Yes.
if everybody's in agreement to do that. If so, then work on the land and then
I
the
agree.
potential, you need to come up with a couple ideas of land, not just bank on that we're gonna get it out
From the
there,
state.
by North Point.
Okay, so
Will we
have a
use,
resolution on Tuesday.
Red Sarah Carroll, do you have some ideas of where in Boyle County that we should look, I mean, that kind of thing? For,
Well, one
a
of the
good
things
spot.
they asked for is proximity to the court. It's one of their criteria with land.
for a change, it's a good thing we're a small geographic county.
Yeah, that's not really gonna be an issue here, I don't
Yeah.
think, unless you wanna go down on some other county border, which wouldn't make sense.
Down
The
the forest.
majority of our court is done by video now.
As a
That's
North
right.
Point, you take a
Video
left,
ran
you're
that,
here, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
out of
Well, what we've done with other jurisdictions like yourself in the past is you can get a realtor involved, and they need to sign something that says they'll be discreet. And they can go out and start poking around and looking at property on your behalf, because if the county shows up looking for property, all of a sudden everybody thinks, you know, you've got deep
Big
pockets.
pockets.
You really don't want potential sellers knowing the county wants it for a jail. We just need a little assistance finding parcels of property in that 10 to even up to 20 acres, possibly even someone to approach landowners, even out in the North Point vicinity. Are there any farmers out there who would sell a piece of property close to the road? Or you don't know, but you know, that endeavor can be underway.
So the phase one environmental,
That's done when you have property.
yeah.
Yes,
Which means you're very careful on the property you acquire.
correct, because that will be an expense that you have to,
Right.
and that's not cost prohibitive, but
Yeah, you'll get appraisals and then,
yeah.
you know,
And the
When,
option
when
is,
do
if
we have to start the bonding process?
what was the question?
When do we have to start the
When we
is it the
start
bonding, you say bonding
When does
Funding
that start?
or
process,
funding?
yes,
Bonding.
Which is the same.
it's the
Bonding?
same thing.
Yeah.
Jason, did you say bonding or
When,
funding?
when does it start the bonding process?
Bonding.
Bonding.
Like you have a financial advisor?
Mhm.
Yeah, Compass,
we
we're
do.
using
Right.
Compass, right?
Compass.
Compass can help with those
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, we've already got
Yeah, they can,
a report from them, so.
The reason I'm asking this is because when we put out a bond, we have to pay interest on that bond. And anybody that's bought anything right now knows that interest rates are sky high, and, you know, we're gonna be paying a lot for this jail if we do it right now, you know, as opposed if we'd done it a couple of years ago, but whatever. But, so that's gonna, one of those factors, I don't know, has that been factored in, the current interest rates for, on a bond in order to sell a bond? Has,
Maybe
has
not,
Darby
but
looked at that at all?
Compass can run all that for you
Yeah.
and give you,
And the bonds aren't sold until, like, right when you're ready to start construction.
Right.
Unless you need money for land.
Correct.
Can a bond be refinanced if the interest rates go down?
No, it's not like that, you have to
You sell
redo the
bonds
whole
for a
bonding
certain amount.
process.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's hard to sell somebody another bond when you've got these higher paying interest rates, this bond.
Well, I think the presidential election's really gonna determine a lot of things, and if, depending on who gets elected, I think our interest rates potentially will go down, but.
Yeah, that's another year away.
True.
yeah.
But it will take us a long time to design a jail
Yes,
and do bid documents.
And find the land.
yes.
Find a way.
We're
But
not
if it-
breaking ground this year.
No.
Do what?
Yeah, but again, my question comes down to like, when do we have to have that bond started? Because that's really when you start advertising, you know, when you start doing your prospectuses and stuff like that, that's when you advertise what the bond is going to pay interest-wise. So
I don't think you did have to
are
acquire the
we
land.
not going to need to do that bond for 2-3 years? Is that what you're saying?
Typically on projects where the bonds are sold to cover the cost of the project, they're typically done after we get a bid from a contractor. And then Compass would go out and do the bond sale and then come back, you know, you would do that as the project's getting started. Yeah, and I mean, if you had property right now and we started today on design, we're probably not going out to bid until summer of next year. So, you know, based on where we are today, there's still decisions that have to be made, there's still steps to be taken. So you're probably looking after the election next year at this point, anyway,
Yeah.
to even go out to bid for a contractor.
And we can't leave without one more potential issue that could, I think, unseat this whole conversation. Monica, you and I were over there talking about the moratorium. What's your assessment and what do you think the sentiment of this General Assembly in 2024 is going to be about trying to block us from doing anything? You think that's I mean, I can see it
That's a
being
good
out there.
question. I don't think think I can formulate an answer off the cuff. Our firm keeps in touch with Renee McDaniel pretty often, but I have not spoken with her since the spring. So perhaps I float that question to her, see what her opinion is on that. And she's the, what's her title? She's the executive director of the
Jail
association,
Association.
yes.
I haven't heard
I don't
anything
know.
along those lines, but, you know, it was nip and tuck there.
And that's
It
something our
was.
association really lobbied against, you
Yes.
know,
Oh, yeah.
as an association in
Yes.
the county.
And Monica and I were over there talking to legislators.
That's
about
one thing
Yes.
the Magistrates Association needs to be involved in, the
Keiko.
Judges Association needs to be involved in
Magistrates.
as well, saying, no, we don't want this. So that's how we
Yes.
keep that from happening.
And I think if you've got your process started before, even if they voted that next
We
year,
need
I
to
think
get this
you're,
in.
I
before
think you're gonna be
January.
grant.
That's
you're
the
gonna
key
be
right
granted.
there.
I think you're on to
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
Julie.
Great.
This is a slow process, but there's a lot of moving parts.
Okay, so,
Yes,
so the first thing we need to do is circle back around on this property,
yes.
request, and
Yes.
then,
And then the
find
second
some
option,
alternate sites.
so getting a realtor. And here's the thing, if we do have to get land, there may be an opportunity for the county to think, okay, what do we need to do down the road? What else are we gonna have to put? So maybe get, you know, if you need a little more than 10 acres,
Right.
so we already own the land, so we can go ahead and put something there in the future if you need to.
Curious how many
But not a-
acres that
well.
parcel is.
Yeah, I mean, you could have, I mean, Compass is probably gonna help you with some of your financials for that application anyway, but they can run different, construction number,
Okay.
scenarios for you and show you where you'll be. They just did some of that work for us down in, Graves and Mayfield.
Okay.
They run numbers on it, so they can do like a 200-bed jail, a 250, a 300, you know, and different construction costs and show you, you know, what you're looking at.
And Julie, if it would be helpful to you, like you and us and Compass, we could sit right in this room
We
and
probably need to set
crunch
that up.
numbers, and it would be a messy meeting, right? But we could,
Yeah.
sometimes it helps just to sit across the table and figure things
Yes,
out.
yes.
Or you can phone call and email about it for a month.
Right.
That
and
gives
still
us
not
some
Right.
comfort.
Yeah, but getting face to face is,
Yes.
yeah.
But if
So
you're
it's
just,
a lot easier.
excuse me, if you're just considering the beds in a
Yes.
jail, how do you incorporate the treatment rooms you're wanting to have more of? I mean, do you still
That comes
just,
in the design part of it.
just the design
Yeah.
adds them?
Right,
Okay.
the
All
way
right.
it's actually laid out, as far as the cells or dorms or whatever you wanna call them.
Right.
Pods, the different,
Right.
that's included into
Okay.
that.
And Magistrate Boner, it is often confusing for people who aren't design professionals to understand how we can design something when we don't yet know what you need,
Right,
right?
right.
I understand the questions. It's intuitive, and we have to rely a lot on staff to guide us through that. As a fiscal court, your big decisions are where's it going, and here's what we can afford. And we take it from there,
Okay.
but advise you and keep you up to date. I'll allow you to ask questions. It is not a linear process, but more of a, we get to this point, ask questions, we might have to go back. You know, we progress, but there's a lot of back and forth.
So Brian will be in the process
Oh,
all the
yeah.
way.
And Chad,
Yes,
And Chad.
yeah, they're gonna be involved.
Yes.
Okay, good, that's good.
I'm gonna learn to take Brian's calls
So-
when he calls.
I think that's wise. I think that's wise.
Master Cullen?
So we really can't do anything till we get land, right?
Right.
That's pretty much
That
where
is correct.
we're gridlocked at the whole land thing. So we gotta put the gas pedal on whoever to figure out if we can get North Point land or if we can go out and buy land. And, that's the first step, seems like.
Though Magistrate Colin, this is Monica Sumner, I would say that, so preliminary planning can still be happening. Chad and Brian and Eric and Compass and Julie, like, we can still be doing thinking level planning on bed counts, square footages, budgets, so that when you do have opportunity to purchase a piece of land, we can validate that decision.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so when you say we can't really do anything until we have land,
But at what cost, Monica?
I mean, we're,
Like, all that planning, are we still under a contract with you, or are we signing a new contract
you're under contract.
that will,
There's,
Okay, so
That's
it's not
just a-
costing the county any more money to do this preliminary planning?
That is a part of our work, whether we do it now or in 3 months or in a year. We would do that process anyway, right, Eric? Yeah,
Yeah, it's all
so
part of the program.
there's no extra fee associated with that.
There
Just
is
wanna
a,
make sure it's an important question to ask.
I understand, it is important.
there is a potential, other piece of land. So if North Point doesn't come through, then we can, proceed.
And
to-
let us look at it.
Yeah,
Tell us where it is, we'll be discreet.
Yeah.
Let us, and we can evaluate it from just the usability of it.
Can we build what we need on it?
Yes.
That kind of
Mr.
stuff?
Cullen, I
Yes.
didn't hear what you said.
I said quietly consider it.
Yeah.
Quietly,
Yes,
yes,
discreetly.
yes, yeah, discreetly.
I'm gonna
Discreetly.
step away,
Yes,
Eric's
ma'am.
gonna stay. Does anyone need a study book?
I've got mine.
I'll be glad to store them, but
Anybody want one?
No, I think
Truly, do you have one?
I'm pretty sure I do.
I delivered some a few
Yeah.
months
Oh,
ago,
yeah.
but
I have one.
And
You have
do
one,
We
Darlene?
can give you this other one.
Okay,
And
give our treasurer one,
That's good.
please.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
you all can.
And so now we've got 2 or 3 here available,
You
right?
can look at them,
Yeah,
they'll be in
just-
on the shelf.
Yeah, swap it around.
Monica, thank you for being
Thank you
here.
so much.
Appreciate it.
So Eric, the first, kind of working through the process is get this report, pass a resolution Tuesday that we want to move forward, work on property, and then we'll start planning for growth, kind of as we design. But the first 3 is the letter, report, the resolution, and working on property.
Yeah, and then,
That's the first.
yeah, we can, we've already started kind of working through the programming process,
Okay.
so we can, that's just spreadsheets, so we can keep doing that and make sure that they're good with the program, and then, once we decide, get there and we talk to Compass, work through some stuff, and make a decision, okay, here's what we are, then we can go back. We know the program's what it is, and we can start whittling away the things to get it down to the
At
budget.
what point do we need to come together with Compass? Soon?
So we find the land or?
Yeah, I would probably say, well, it may be okay to do within the, the next couple months.
Before the report's done? Or after?
You're gonna need them to do some stuff for that
Yeah,
report,
let's-
so,
We'll set up something again.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it may be a good thing just to have them kind of run these scenarios now,
Okay.
so that you know,
For the different bed counts?
yeah,
Okay,
and where those numbers are,
At 550 square feet?
yeah.
yeah.
Judge, I want to make one more comment, and I
Sure.
promise it'll be
Sure.
my last one in the meeting.
Oh, man.
Revolutionary.
Unrealized promises.
No, this is very serious. With the incredible work that Brian, Chad, and James Hunt are doing in getting folks back into the workforce, and being 800 to 1,000 employees short in a community of 32,000, we really need the public to understand that it's evolutionary and revolutionary that we have many workers in our community right now who have been incarcerated sometime in their lives. I'll look inward, and I think, in my case, there's no family that isn't affected one way or another by what we see in culture and society today. And I know there's been resistance in the past. I would never hire a former inmate, but we are in a new era. And again, with the work these gentlemen are doing, with getting people re-entered in, not as a very, as we've seen today, detrimental fiscal liability of the community, that meaning the taxpayers, that these former inmates re-entering and doing a good job and monitored remarkably well are now adding to society and adding to our tax rolls. So I think that needs to be said, because the understanding of my early years, even in corporate life, you put down that you've been arrested, and our personnel would dig into it, and you had no chance of getting a job, let alone having been incarcerated. So it's important that the public realize that many fine people stumble in their lives and need the opportunity for a second chance. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you. Master Harmon, give us some wisdom from all your years of experience on why we should proceed with a new detention center.
Number one, stay out of jail. That's the cheapest solution.
Yeah.
But I think it's an opportunity for Boyle County to be innovative and not business as usual. If we do business as usual, we'll get equal what we've had all along. And that is your population grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. We were running 400, that was nothing. Even though we took the indoor rec room that made floor beds, no restrooms. They used a water jug. And you don't want to get back into that scenario.
Right.
I've been there. You don't want it. And I think we have to really look at being innovative. And this idea, notice it comes into our conversation, how cheap can we get it done? You do it right, it's going to cost you. If you do it wrong, it's going to cost you. There's no way of getting out of the cost of a jail. So pick the best road to travel on. I encourage all of you to look at the best road to travel down. As far as the land, you got to talk to the warden at North Point.
Okay.
The buck stops there. It's not the governor. It's not any of his aides. It is that warden.
Okay.
Because the state of Kentucky gives over to its wardens the authority of that prison. Because if it goes wrong, they cut his or heads off and they're gone. But gotta make contact with that warden.
Okay.
Well, when I was jailer, I sat down with the warden, talked to him. He said, "How much land you need?" I said, 50 acres. All he did say no. And it ended up 25 acres. It was right out front, right off Bergen Road, 33, access into the new jail. And it was going to be perfect, all one level, and that came to pass, like a lot of other things. And it was lack of. Then we could have built it cheap. We could have had 200 more beds where Brian's at right now. They would have been there for just $2 million. Now who wouldn't take 200 secured beds, secured? And now it costs you what, 50, 60 million to get that many?
Yeah.
But that's water under the bridge, and let's look at it and we jump back in and touch some spaces you may be afraid to touch. Cause all they can do is say, get your hand off of it.
Not smacking.
And be thinking.
Yeah.
Be innovative. Cause what we doing, we getting the same thing what we've been doing for years and years. When I came into office, 2003, 2 months later, they cut the per diem $1 a day on state inmates. Cut it. So immediately we went to $29 a day. But it was more profitable then than it is now.
So, do you, from going through all this before, do you have any suggestions on where to look for land? Did you have anything in mind at that time? You don't have to be specific, but just,
Yeah.
did you have any place in mind?
Well, the focus was more on North Point because now it's even better. Now there's gonna be a fire department there. There's gonna be probably an ambulance there, backup staff, which are state employees that are deputies, and we could be back up to the prison. Vice versa, we could work together. We'd just be a field apart.
Yeah.
And that means a lot. That means a lot when it comes to security. What we are still to provide today, as it was when I was jailer, is that we provide a constitutional level of care. Have to. If you don't, you be writing out your checkbook. And it could be the county, it can be personally.
Okay,
They'll win.
thank you very much.
And don't get federal inmates.
Okay,
They'll write lawsuits all day long.
okay.
They'll lay in our bunks,
Thank you.
eat our food, and get all of our medicine, and they'll write lawsuits. That's what they do.
And there's a different level of care
Yeah,
compared to what
it
you have
really
to
is.
provide for them versus
Yeah.
other inmates.
Mr. Sleeper?
Yeah, I just wanna make sure I have all the ammunition I need during conversations in the community about going forward with a new detention facility. Obviously, the condition of the current facility is deteriorating. There's a need for more beds. We need more treatment areas. So are there any other issues that I need to know about when somebody asks me, why are we getting a new jail?
That's a
Well,
good question.
Staff safety.
Staff, and then the way the building is designed, you have a secure and a non-secure side. So our staff side has 80 beds. That's where our kitchen and everything is. So if the state comes in and says you can't have a SAP program anymore, I have 80 beds over here that I can't do anything with because everybody else has to be on the secure side. So that's, when we do this, it all needs to be one level of security. So that could happen. And when it rains, my maintenance guy has to go up on the roof and put a sump pump in 5 different spots to pump the water off. Or where the water's coming down, the walls are falling in. So what I'd like to do, and this is for the judge and each magistrate, I'd like for you all to pick a day or a couple days during this process and invite people from your districts to come in and tour. And we will take them through. We were doing this as part of our process when we first began, but COVID hit and we had to stop. But you all will pick a day, we'll advertise it, and then you all, and me and Chad, and Danny, however big the group is, we'll take you all through and let the public look and see. And I've had some very physically conservative people come through, like, we don't need to spend the money, but we have to do this. This is not acceptable. And
Yeah, I gotta slip out, but just on that note, and I would highly recommend we get back to that because I do think we did that before and that was very effective because it helps you create other spokespeople for the process because I don't think there was anybody that went on the tour that didn't come out saying, wow, yeah, we need a new
And the
layout."
public's paying for it, so they should have, they should see why the need is,
And that was why, when we did the study, for those who weren't here during that time, we did a lot of public engagement. And that was, it gives you champions because most people are gonna say they don't want a jail. Don't matter, there's no reason in the world we need to build a jail. I've done enough around that every community says that.
Right.
But you guys, the fact that we did the study and had it public engagement throughout the process, this is the one community I think you'll have support. Now, obviously it's gonna matter where you put it, but you'll have the support because they were all at the meetings and they heard the report and they heard what they needed and what we needed. Then they started touring with Brian and his staff and they saw what you all have. So
Well, the deterioration of the facility is the number one reason that we need to look at building a new facility.
Yeah, and last point, and then I'll be quiet. But, yeah, right, unrealized promises. In the funding, the way I've always tried to look at these big funding projects is when we did this, 20 years ago or 30 years ago or however many years ago it was we built the jail, I'm sure at that time they were thinking that it would be a 50-year project, but it's been a 20, 25-year project. I really think if we do it right and we spend the money and build room for expansion, I think we've got to really approach this as a 50-year kind of project because it's going to cost a lot of money, but I think you have to think of it as being a 50-year project. Hopefully, in that process and in that time frame, we may do some additions and other things to it. The county might, but I think it's got to be viewed and approached that way. 50 million, 60 million, that's a heck of a lot of money, and nobody disagrees with that. But this is a long-range, long-term project that hopefully another fiscal court won't really have to dig into this for 50 years from now. sorry.
Take a snack with you. Yeah, take a snack.
Yeah, I had my snack. Everybody
Okay.
get some. It's great. Thank you, whoever brought that.
All right.
It's delicious.
So, any other questions or discussion that we need to talk about while we have everybody present? Anybody got any
Do you
questions?
want an update on the joint jail, kind of where we are with the joint jail committee and the agreement?
I don't think we can do that with a special call
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
But I would like to say thank you for doing this, because I think we had to get everybody in the room and start somewhere. And I think a lot of questions were answered, a lot of good questions were
Yeah,
asked.
good discussion.
And we know what direction we need to go in,
Right.
so we can start that journey now. So thank you all for doing this.
You're welcome. Master Cullen, you have anything you'd like to add? You're looking kind of sleepy up there.
No, I'm good. What's that?
You're looking kind of sleepy up there.
I'm just trying not to get on West Coast time, that's all.
Well, thank you for being here this morning. We know it's
Yeah, thank you so much, I appreciate it.
kind of hard to do all that, but we appreciate you zooming in. All right, anybody, anything? Okay, need a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All right, motion by Measure Bowden, second.
Second.
Second by Measure Sleeper. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Make the-